With me now is Glenn Kirschner, former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. And I'm going to go in the same direction with you, my friend, because here's the thing. Nothing about that day can be characterized as spontaneous, period. Donald Trump was not somehow still fooled into thinking he won the election. We now know for sure he had been told many times, including by his sycophant attorney general, that he lost. So we know that. We know that he said after meeting with people like Michael Flynn, who was saying seize the voting machines, he met with people like Roger Stone. He's meeting with the Sidney Powells of the world. They meet alone to the point where even people like Sean Hannity are saying, don't let this guy be alone with these people anymore. He meets alone with them and then within hours tweets, come to the Capitol, it's going to be wild. Then he tweets that over and over and over again. January 6th was not a thing most people knew about. Most Americans don't know this, don't know all that civics, that January 6th is significant. He made it significant. He draws the crowd there, and then he says, you see down the street? Those people are taking your rights. Let's march over there. I'll walk with you. But the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers were already there. Does that not suggest to you that Donald Trump must have known that the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers would be his enforcers in staying in power?
Joy, this was a plot. This was a plan. This was a scheme. This was not a riot or a crowd that got overenthusiastic and sort of spun out of control. And I can't wait to see more information in the coming public hearings about the meeting in the Oval Office between Trump, Flynn, Giuliani, and Powell. I'm quite sure the J6 committee has some information about that they're going to present, because last night we sort of got the impression that there were no adults in the room at the time, right? No lovers of democracy in there to try to keep that conspiracy, contained. And we heard that, some people did rush in when they heard these folks were meeting in the Oval Office.
Correct.
But about an hour after that meeting, we got the tweet. The plan had been hatched and Donald Trump was implementing it. Come to D.C. on January 6th will be wild. Enjoy the other word that you've already picked up on and others have picked up on that we heard yesterday was war. Why does that become important? Well, where is that word prominently featured in the big, ugly blue book of federal laws, the United States Code? The crime of treason. And every time I heard war, my mind went back to treason, which is a very short and simple statute. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States, like the president, levies war against the United States is guilty of treason. What we now know is Donald Trump not only set the date for the Capitol attack, as we've just discussed, but he also refused to call off his angry mob once he deployed them for more than 3 hours. But I think what we learned a little bit more about last night was not only did he refuse to call off the attack, he refused to authorize the deployment of any forces to go to the Capitol to fend off the attack, to protect the people in the U.S. Capitol that he set his angry mob on. And it took an order from Mike Pence, who frankly probably didn't have the authority at that moment. But General Milley said he was insistent. We have to get forces to the Capitol and Mike Pence is no hero. He was protecting his own skin because he was in the Capitol. But you know what? This begins to feel not just like treason, but like treason squared.
Yeah. It's attempting to overthrow the election. Other lovers of democracy, people who, again, politically, I disagree with these people vehemently, but you're going to have more people who stood up to Donald Trump testify. This is what's coming up. Former Fox News political editor Chris Stierwalt is going to testify on Monday. Trump knew that he had lost the election, spread false information anyway. That's what his topic is. You're going to have Jeffrey Rosen, who was in the DOJ, refusing to be replaced by a sycophant who would then do what they wanted Ukraine to do, announce a fake investigation so that it would make it look real that there was some sort of fraud in the election. Pence advisor Greg Jacob, who, to your point, Pence was targeted by Donald Trump. He said maybe he should be hanged. And, of course, Brad Raffensperger and Gabriel Sterling, who Trump tried to pressure to flip the Georgia election. What might we get out of that testimony?
I think we're going to get more voices bringing to light Donald Trump's crime and evidence that bears on Donald Trump's intent. And importantly, I think a lot of them are going to be Republican voices. I was surprised that the first witness we saw last night via a video clip of his testimony was Bill Barr. I would not have bet a buck he was going to be the first witness we would have heard from during the first public hearings from the J6 committee. And it was a smart tactical move. Why? Because one, it's a Republican condemning a Republican former president. And two, to the extent anybody still entertains the notion that it might be a challenge to prove Donald Trump's corrupt intent, which it won't be, Bill Barr laid that to rest from jump, saying, I told the president his claim of election fraud was bull S, period. The corrupt intent question was answered at the very beginning of the hearings. And then we heard more Republican voices like Mark Short and Jason Miller. And we heard Ivanka saying, I credit Bill Barr's take on there being no election fraud, not my father's. The more Republican voices we hear from during these hearings, I think the more it will blunt the criticism that this is just a partisan witch hunt.
To say nothing of the fact that the leader of the prosecution is named Liz Cheney, like Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney. Glenn Kirschner, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.